Hello, hello, fine people, and God bless. Now, today's going to be a little bit different. I want to talk about how I'm viewing society right now. And that's mostly going to be coming from my own experiences. Whether that be something I've experienced firsthand or I've noticed in other people and their interaction, or what I've heard from other people, stories I've been told, etc., etc. And I want to say I could go off the beaten path and be mostly fine, but I had this in my mind last night and I got to writing like I like to do, and I'm writing it all down. I'm having more or less a conversation with myself, and what I'm about to do now is I'm just finna share it. And it went a little something like this. Do you know what people hate? Narrow-mindedness. Do you know what they hate as much as a narrow mind? And I hate to say this, but it's making a decision. But do you know what they hate just as much, if not more, than making a decision? It's being told what decision to make. But here I have 3 counters. And that's keeping an open mind, assessing the choices and deciding on one, and assessing the facts and deciding on something. So number 1, keeping an open mind. What does that mean? For starters, you can only do that for you and nobody else, right? See, I could tell myself not to cuss or smack strangers in the face, and for my own sake, I ought to listen, right? But I can't tell you the same thing and expect you to obey, but simply hope you'd keep it in mind. Why? For your sake. Just like stopping at a red light, or wearing a safety helmet in a work zone, or practicing your Second Amendment rights. But when you say keep an open mind, it almost sounds like you're saying you should to some people. And telling some people what they should do is narrow-minded to them and offensive, quite honestly. I'd argue that that's the other way around, but truthfully, you want to avoid coming off narrow-minded, right? I do, generally. So you want to avoid it, and it's not up to you to decide for someone else to be open-minded. They either care for the truth or they don't. These are just some of the facts. I'm sorry, I'm still a little sick, but I'm think I'm getting over it pretty soon. But yeah, that brings me to number 2 now. Assessing the options. Simply, you have to. Why? Because you have to make a decision, and deciding not to decide is still a decision, and not the best one you could have made for yourself. Just another simple fact. You could sit on the fence your whole life. At the end of the day, you chose or decided to sit there on that fence because whatever reasons you may have. And like I'm saying, not making a decision is still making a decision, and it is not the best decision you could have made for yourself. But the third thing, number 3, assessing the facts. So basically, you have to be open-minded so you could wisely narrow your mind and make sometimes critical or minor decisions. This is another fact. That's more or less reality, if not completely reality. Because sure, you could go through life open minded your whole life, looking at everything and never really choosing anything. Good luck. Or you could be narrow minded, singularly. My apologies. Like I said, I'm kind of sick, and my very loving, amazing, downright awesome grandmother just brought me some medicine. So, shout out to Granny. But like I was saying, you could spend your whole life being open minded, or spend your whole life being narrow minded. And like I said, assessing the facts requires you to have an open mind so you could wisely narrow your mind and make critical or minor decisions. You can't avoid deciding on anything. You can't possibly know everything to make the best decision for yourself all the time. So what do? Step out in the faith. In what? The facts. Then I'm asking a question now. I don't know if you could tell by the tone of my voice, but these are questions that like I said, I've been talking. I was talking to myself about this, and these are just questions I had, and the answer I came up with was sometimes. Sure, sometimes you gotta put faith into the facts that are laid before you. Sometimes you absolutely should. Preferably, I would like to. But a lot of the times, I would argue and heavily wager that it is putting your faith into things seen sometimes, but the things unseen and unknown. Because you just won't. You just can't possibly know how something's going to turn out. Sometimes the facts are someone other than you knows best. And I want to say that, but at the time, like, that's what I said at the time when I was writing this. But like I said, I want to try to be as open-minded as possible and leave little room for misinterpretation. Maybe it's not they know best, but maybe they know some things just a little bit better. And that's just facts, because you know what you know as well as you know it, and vice versa for them. Like, that's one of the great things about community and friends and family, and we should all do our best to take advantage of that, in my opinion. And that's the truth in the case of whether you can see them or not. And that's what I look to my faith for. The wisdom in it. You know what I mean? My heavenly Father, Jesus Christ. That's seen or unseen, known or unknown. I'll put faith in that because my experience personally. But yeah, it's sometimes it's things seen or unseen that can help, and I'd be a fool not to pay attention and listen to that. And that's just in my opinion. But in general, like, we're looking at real world examples that people experience today. You don't see your government, and yet they've put in place laws for generally our benefit, like punishment on murder. And every day we step out into faith in our government that everybody else abides and doesn't kill us or each other for whatever reason. Or we put our faith in people are going to stop at stoplights, or we put our faith in the helmet we put on in the work zone is going to protect us if a brick falls on our head, or acquiring the means and right to defend yourself. And defend yourself from what? Probably the best question I'm finna ask. Simply defend yourself from the people who don't believe or have the same faith as you. And it's narrow-mindedness or pure ignorance that will lead people to believe things should be their way or the highway, or the world should bend and suit them. And I say that's probably the best question I'm going to ask, or really I want to say I've asked myself recently, because, who is the enemy? I would say that's the enemy, the kind of people you want to look out for. And generally, that's probably my biggest contention with societies and the American people's culture currently. Because it is a people problem, and the culture we all share in America leads people to radically different conclusions. And I say it's because as a culture we don't have a divine supreme example or rule that we look to. At best, and this is my opinion, at best we look to God, or at worst, if I'm understanding history correctly, we forsake God and look to handle things on our own way. And I believe I'm seeing a lot of that in society today. And I can't speak for excuse me, my bad. I can't speak for anyone else but me, but I personally know firsthand I don't always like how I've handled things. But so far, I've liked how I handled this. So, thank you for listening. And I want to ask a question before you check out. What things do you hate or believe people hate or simply disagree with? And when it comes to how we've been moving and heading as a society, or I want to say, and when it comes to how we've been moving and where we're heading as a society, what are your problems with it, and where do you think we're actually going? Where do you think we'll end up? Those are my two questions. And once again, thank you for the time. Please comment your answers, and I wish you a very blessed day. Peace.